Hi, I'm Izzy. Welcome back to the second season of the Gleeson First Time Buyer podcast. We've created this podcast to help you with your journey to home ownership, and in our episodes we have covered everything from our fantastic optional extras range to legal advice and everything in between. You'll be able to find our podcast on all the most common streaming services, but also on our YouTube channel, which you can find by searching the Gleeson First Time Buyer podcast. Today we're joined by the lovely Leigh-Ann, who's a solo homeowner of a gorgeous 2-bedroom Cork at one of our Rochdale developments. In this episode, we're going to be chatting all about her experience getting onto the property ladder and what advice she would give to anyone considering buying as a solo homeowner. 50% of our customers are solo buyers, so we're guessing this episode will be popular. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Leigh-Ann. Please could you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello, so I'm Leigh-Ann, I'm 28 and I work as an orthopaedic ward sister. I bought my Gleeson Cork in 2019, I think it was. After living with my parents in a little box room while I was studying basically to be a nurse. So then, I had an idea of getting on the property ladder and I bought my Gleeson Cork only 8 months after qualifying as a nurse. So Amazing. It was a lot sooner than what I thought it would be.
Yeah. And how did you feel? So congratulations first on getting onto the property ladder as a solo homeowner. How did you feel when you first got the keys to talk us through the process of kind of building up to getting it and the moment you actually got your keys?
So building up to getting my Gleeson, it was actually my friends that inspired me to get a Gleeson. So I had 2 friends called Laura and Chris at the time, and they were in the process of buying their Gleeson home. And obviously when you see your friends buying a house, you're thinking, I want to buy a house as well. But obviously I knew I'd just qualified and I needed some saving to do. So I watched their process of them buying their Gleeson home and I just couldn't believe how affordable Gleeson houses were. So when they were coming down to see theirs, I came down one day to speak to the sales advisors too. They advised me then to speak to Meridian, which is in partnership with Gleeson, and they help with figuring out how much your mortgage could be, how much you could afford off the wage you was on at that time. So then that's what I did, and I just couldn't believe that I could afford a new build. You always have in your head that new builds are very expensive. You take a lot of saving to buy your own house. So then I had it in my head that I really wanted a Gleeson house. But then I had a bit of a wait for a house to come on sale because I was at the start of the development.
Right.
So then I had to wait for the houses to be released, and they were so popular at the time that I was looking. In my development around this area, there were so many people that wanted these houses. So then I was like, am I ever going to get one? Are they ever going to be released? So when they finally did get released, I was doing a night shift. So I had to text my dad and I was like, Dad, the houses have gone on sale. So then my dad had to go and wait outside for them to come on sale for me. And then I had to finish my night shift, drive to the Gleeson thing and be like, please, give me a Cork. I just want a Cork. So they knew me from obviously going down, and they knew I really wanted it. So when they finally said this plot is yours, it was amazing. And putting my little sticker on the map was just it's something I'll never forget doing anyway. You never will you? Your first house. So then obviously watching all the build stages was absolutely amazing. It was what attracted me to a new build as well, is being able to watch your house being built. So the day that I got my keys was just, I think I would say I was in a little bit of shock. I couldn't believe that I actually had a house. You kind
of walk in and you're like, oh my gosh, this is mine.
She was like, and this is how you'll do this. And I was just like, okay. They would tell me about the boiler and I was like, where's my dad? Because I'm not going to remember any of this. Because I was just in shock that I'd finally got my own house. But another thing is, so I didn't move into my house as soon as I got the keys. We had some work done because obviously I had no carpets or flooring or anything. So my mum helped me do that. So I didn't move in until I think about a month after. And when I spent the first night in my own house, I had imposter syndrome. I remember being sat at this table having my breakfast. I remember thinking in my head I wonder when they're going to come home. And I was like, who am I thinking of? I thought I was in somebody else's house. For ages that was how I felt, I was living in somebody else's house.
It's such a surreal feeling, all the hard work that you've gone into saving and everything, and then all of a sudden you're in this place that's completely yours. You can do what you want. So we touched on it briefly, how you mentioned about the affordability. And if you don't mind saying, how much did you pay for your for your Cork?
So at the time, my Cork was up for 106,000, and then I used the Help to Buy scheme, which Meridian helped me go through and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think my deposit was about 5,600, which is just amazing. Like I said, I qualified, and within 8 months, I was able to put a deposit down on a house. And like going from a uni student to owning your own house within that small amount of time is just amazing.
Yeah. That is. What tips would you have for for any solo homeowners for saving up for your deposit? Kind of what little bits and bobs did you do to save up money?
If you can, and your parents are willing to, stay with your mum and dad as long as you can while you're saving. Like I bet my mum and dad in the end were like, are you going to leave now? Because I had boxes and boxes of things that I was like saving, like that I'd saved for the house.
Yeah.
So that's another one. Just, try and keep your outcome as low as you can when you're saving.
Yeah.
So for example, I had a little car that I drove and it didn't cost me much on petrol or insurance, and I just bear with that car until obviously I got my house.
Yeah.
And one piece of advice that my dad gave me was like, you're going from a little tiny box room to a big house on your own. He was like, do not try and buy everything new. It was like things like furniture, like settees, TV units, things like that, tables. He was like, buy second hand or off Facebook Marketplace, and then as you're in your house, renew things.
Yeah.
And that must have saved me loads of money doing it that way.
Yeah.
And
it's nice because you can put your own touch on it that way as well. So if you do buy stuff and want to upcycle it, you can put your own touch on it. So that's lovely. We've mentioned how you found it affordable to get onto the property ladder with Gleeson. How have you found it now that you're 3 years in your home?
Yeah, nearly 3 years.
I know it's a hot topic at the moment with energy prices rising. How have you found your energy prices living in your Gleeson home?
So when I first moved into my Gleeson home, it was in about February time, so it was quite cold at the time. And I was really, really shocked at how warm these houses are. Like you've been in them, you know how hot they are. Like they're so warm. So they're really good with energy because they're constantly warm. I hardly ever have to put my radiators on. Yeah. I think in a whole year I put my radiators on for like 2 months in like the dead of winter. Yeah. And obviously with the rising energy costs at the minute, obviously mine has been upped, but it isn't upped as much as I thought it would be compared to other friends I've spoken to where they're in older houses where their energy costs have just risen so much that it's like it's unrealistic of what they're asking people to pay.
Definitely.
So yeah.
I know I'm sat here in my jacket, but literally it is so warm. I feel like I should take it off, but no, we move. So the reason how you've got onto this podcast was through Instagram, because you have an Instagram page, which is at lees.home. So if you haven't, check it out. But your home hasn't always looked as amazing as it does on Instagram. No. So talk us through the process of kind of when you bought it as a blank canvas and how you've put your own personal stamp on it and decorated it to how gorgeous it is now.
Yeah, so thank you, first of all. So when I was looking at buying a house, obviously I said I really wanted a new build. And one of the other things that interested me about new builds is it being a blank canvas. So it was appealing to me that like the walls would be blank, there'd be no flooring, things like that. So once I moved in, like I say, I didn't move in straight away. My dad built me a TV wall in the front room. That was one of the first things he built for me. So that was one way like I personalised it because then it wasn't like every other Cork or anything like that.
I think that's one thing that I do love when I have been in is no Cork is the same. Like everyone's style really comes through in a Gleeson home, which is what I think's amazing. But sorry, carry on.
Because you have that like accessibility to do that. Like it's a blank canvas, you can do whatever you want. You can paint it green, orange, whatever you want. So that was one thing that we did. We built the TV wall, and then obviously there's quite a few rooms that have got this panelling. So this is one of them. This is what my mum's done. And then upstairs I had a bulkhead, which I've built like a TV wall on that as well with storage behind it. So that was another way we did it. And I like dressing my house up for the seasons. So you can tell at the minute I've got it for autumn. But as soon as Halloween hits, it's all Halloween. And then Christmas, everything's Christmassy.
It just makes it feel extra cosy though. It's so nice. And also your garden is absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
How did you talk us through the process of how you kind of personalised your garden?
So obviously when you get a Gleeson house, it's just basically mud, isn't it? Which is good because you can do whatever you want again.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised at how big the gardens were as well. Like, I couldn't believe that all that garden was mine when they put the fence markers in. I was like, what am I going to do with it? So I spoke to my dad, who's really good with like planning and things like that. And I said to him, like, obviously I want to be able to host barbecues and parties. So he thought of the idea of building the decking, which we've got. So we've got a decking area and lights around there, and then I've got a patio and quite a big greenery area and a lot of plants in my garden. So
it is beautiful. I can imagine in the summer, like you said, for any barbecues and whatnot, hosting is just absolutely perfect. So what would you say as a solo homeowner, what would you say to any future potential solo homeowners to getting onto the property ladder? What advice would you give them?
I would suggest like looking at different mortgage providers and speaking to companies like Meridian who can help, you know, find out what mortgage suits you and what you need to do, and just ask people questions, because as a solo buyer it can be really daunting sometimes, like not knowing what you're doing. You're doing it on your own as well, so it's like, who do I ask? And that's why I liked Instagram so much at the time, because I could ask all these people that had already been through that process. Yeah. And like I said, just save as much as you can. Don't try and do everything at once. Don't go out and think, it's my new house, I'm on my own, I'm going to buy everything brand new right now, because you'll get overwhelmed. So that's another thing, just try and stay calm. I know it's hard.
Keep something, carry on and keep calm or something.
And I know it's hard because you're just so excited, but yeah, you just gotta go with the flow, basically.
Yeah, and with a Gleeson development, obviously you get a lovely community. When you move on, what's the community like on your development?
So the community is really nice on here. There's a lot of young people on here, so we all made like a Facebook page where we all can like support each other with any problems or anything. And like I say, there was also Instagram at the time, so there was a few girls on the estate that was watching my house be built, so they used to update me of what was going on, and they could tell me like what the next stages were.
So
it was really nice.
And you mentioned before we started filming, you mentioned that you've got some friends on the development as well.
So the reason, like I say, I got the Gleeson house because I've watched my friends Laura and Chris buy their Gleeson house. So then they referred me through the friends policy thing that Gleeson refer a friend. So that was a way that I, you know, got to know the process as well of doing it on my own. At least I had the support of them and I could see what they were doing.
Yeah. And I think one of the main things is when you buy your first home, or when you get onto the property ladder, is you go from living with your parents, kind of living with their rules. I don't want to say it too loud because your mum's in the next room, but you have to stick to their rules when you're buying your first home, when you're living with your parents. Talk us through kind of like some of your favourite memories that now as a homeowner you can kind of do what you want, when you want, maybe like your first Christmas or any parties or gatherings, kind of. How does that?
So I mentioned before that like I do a summer barbecue. I haven't done that many years because I've not been here, but I've done 2 so far. And also, as you know, I love Halloween. So as soon as it got to October last year, I was like, I'm having a Halloween party and I don't have to ask anyone if I'm allowed to. I'm just going to do it.
I love that.
So I had a Halloween party last year, which was amazing. It was so much fun, and I got to decorate the whole house. Like, there was no one saying, Lee, you can't put blood on the mirrors. I was like, I am doing it. So I did that, and I can't wait. I'm going to have another one this year and I'm really excited for it.
Oh, amazing. So when you were looking for your Gleeson home, I know you we've touched on affordability. How did you, well, firstly, did you look at any other providers? And if so, what attracted you to buying a Gleeson home over any other new build competitors that we have?
Yeah. So at the time that I was watching my friends buy their, obviously, Gleeson house, it was obviously set in my mind that I wanted a Gleeson. But I did go and look at other providers of new builds just because of like area specific and where I was living. I was living not in this area at the time. So I was seeing if there was any providers closer to home of where I was at the time. And I did go and like view some, and I asked about pricing, and I was just confused, if I'm honest. Like, I was like, how can Gleeson provide me with this massive garden, a drive, a front garden for this price? And then there were other providers that were asking for like triple the amount for a smaller garden and like half of a drive. So I just knew from then that obviously I wanted a Gleeson, and also the location of this site was amazing for me. So I work in Manchester, so where we are at the minute is about 5-minute drive to the motorway, then I'm straight on the motorway and straight to Manchester within like 15-20 minutes, which is just
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect for work, perfect for going out.
Yeah,
perfect
exactly.
for shopping.
Yep.
Perfect. And also, we were talking before about train stations as well. It's quite close to the Rochdale train station as well, I believe, is it?
Yeah, so I go to uni, so sometimes I have to walk to the train station, and that only takes me 15-20 minutes, which seems a time, but it's not when you're walking.
Yeah.
It's quite quick, so it's either like a 15-20 minute walk, or you're there within like 5-10 minutes in the car.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's close to everything really. You're close to Manchester, you're close to the train stations to get to the Leeds way.
Yeah.
It's just a really good location.
Amazing. So just to round off the podcast, what future plans have you got for your home? Have you got kind of any more DIY that you're going to do, or what's your future plans in your Gleeson home?
So I think of new things nearly on a monthly basis, and my mum and dad are like, please Leigh, just give us a break now. But I'd like to build like a breakfast table maybe in here, and change the spare room about a little bit, and maybe do some more garden stuff in the summer.
Well, I think that concludes our episode for today. Thank you so much for letting us film in your home.
Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope we've helped future solo homeowners on their journey to home ownership. Don't forget to hit follow and subscribe to our Spotify and YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.